The talk this week is about how much money Diablo 4 has made both in sales of the game as well as microtransactions, so let's talk about it. Now, it's going to be no surprise when we start discussing figures, it will be in large numbers, considering 7 months ago we talked about things like this, where they're selling horsehead bundles with platinum for up for $65. We are going into the 6th season, there are cosmetics for sale, and I do know a lot of people that have actually bought cosmetics. Also, remember a year ago when we talked about the record sales of the game? This was actually the first week after its official launch. This is a New York Times article posted on June 2nd about how they had already sold $666 million worth of sales. And that's just in the first week. Keep in mind, this is before it was out on Steam, before they started doing sales, and before people had been in the game long enough to actually purchase microtransactions. So we're a year late, actually over a year later at this point. So that number obviously is not going to be what it is now. We can assume that number will be inflated at probably pretty significantly now that it's on multiple platforms. However, the standard sales of the game isn't really what's in discussion this week. It's the sales around the microtransaction revenue. There are many different articles out on this right now, and it made its way to Reddit. What you're going to notice is it says the game has made $150 million in microtransactions. This is coming from one of the team members. And you might be thinking, okay, maybe this is anonymous. Where did this info actually come from? If you keep looking at other articles, eventually you're going to see, per a senior manager's LinkedIn profile, $150 million. Further digging, it's going to pull up the website where this person originally broke the news from gamepressure.com. Then you can go to the LinkedIn profile. You see here's a screenshot they show of $150 million lifetime revenue from the Blizzard Entertainment Senior Product Manager's LinkedIn. But if you actually click on it to open it, it's going to tell you the profile could not be found. So this has since been removed. I can believe $150 million in microtransactions. In fact, I probably would have guessed higher. Typically on these types of things, it's the 20-80 rule, which is 20% of your customers give you 80% of your revenue. And I would have guessed that the hardcore fan base of Diablo 4 might have purchased even more cosmetics than that. So $150 million absolutely is believable for me, which if you take the $666 million that was made just within the first week of sales, add the 150, we're already up to $816 million. It makes sense when you read this, executed every step of game sales since game pre-order to the first expansion by configuring and collaborating with other teams, resulting in over 1 billion total lifetime revenue. $1 billion would make sense when you do include the fact they are now accepting pre-orders for the expansion, and they can be quite expensive if you want the full, big dick edition of the game. Now, some people seem to be angry that Diablo 4 has now made over $1 billion. I myself have already stated my opinion on how exactly I feel about this, which is in these cosmetic situations, I actually don't care if a game sells cosmetic, with one simple caveat: cosmetics that look really cool should never look better than in-game cosmetics that you earn for free if the game is a paid game. Meaning if it's not a free game, if you can't just download it for free and try it out, if it's something you have to pay your way into, and especially if it has a subscription model like WoW, for instance, I don't believe that purchasing cosmetics that look better than in-game earned gear should be a thing. This was my feedback with this horse, which is that this is one of the cooler looking, if not the coolest looking horse in the game at the time. And we've already paid to have an entry fee to earn the game. In my opinion, I think this, instead of being tied to a $65 purchase, should have been tied to maybe a leaderboard or gauntlet or some kind of in-game earnable thing. It does seem like this logic is actually making its way to the expansion. However, there are now exclusive cosmetics that will come to the game through the expansion, through the Dark Citadel. Throughout the Dark Citadel, your own Citadel coins, which are key to unlocking cosmetic exclusives to the Dark Citadel that evoke the regal mania of its demonic owners. And then they have an example here effectively showing you some of the cosmetics you can earn in-game. This is my preferred way of doing additional cosmetics, which is you actually play the game to earn something in the game. Who would have guessed? Instead of swiping your card in a game you've already swiped your card on. Keep in mind, this Dark Citadel is locked behind the expansion, so even this, you're going to need to buy the expansion if you want to partake in either Rune Words or the exclusive cosmetics. It probably gives a little bit of security to the franchise that they are printing money at the moment. We're definitely going to continue to see Diablo products continue to be evolved, considering it's a Blizzard record in terms of sales. And there has been a lot of layoffs recently. They just laid off, the Microsoft team just laid off 650 people, I believe, from the Xbox team. Don't believe any of the people on the Diablo side of things were affected by that, but there has been a lot of layoffs in tech lately. So you might be wondering, okay, that seems like a lot of money if the game's made over $1 billion, but how does that actually stack up to competition, or maybe not even competition, but just to get an idea of how much money is that actually in the gaming world? Let's talk about a gacha game, Genshin Impact, for instance, one of the larger ones. It made $400 million within the first 4 months. So keep in mind, Blizzard had already made over 50% more than this within the first week of the launch of Diablo 4. However, over the longevity of the game, as you would expect with like a gacha game like Genshin Impact, the revenue actually continued to climb as they released more characters. So it's $1.8 billion in 21, $1.9 billion in 2022. So it means that revenue spiked up more because it's a flat fee entry game, whereas Genshin is a game that's downloadable for free, and then the microtransaction revenue isn't really that stable. They put out some cosmetics now and then. So for this reason, that's why we're seeing things like the $65 horse pack. That's why we're seeing the extra bundle with the expansion. Like their money was all at the start in like a big sum lump, and now they're having to do little peaks and valleys, for instance, to continue to generate revenue with the Diablo product. Okay, but how about a more comparable product, for instance, like Path of Exile? Well, if we're looking at sort of the year of 2022, for instance, they recorded $48.9 million on an $83 million revenue year. So they have $48 million of profit there. A game like Last Epoch, for instance, a smaller game with a smaller name than like the Diablo franchise, brought in $25 million within its first week on Steam. So that would have been the comparable to the $666 million that we saw with Diablo. I actually think that 25 million is a fairly impressive number compared to that they're going up against like a Diablo franchise here, and Path of Exile is going at the same time. I'm actually surprised this one's that high. That's 800,000 sales. So when you look at things like the comparable games, as well as even things like Genshin Impact, to kind of get an idea of where revenue on these games are, when we're talking $1 billion plus in just over a year here on the game, these are actually like fairly large numbers for a game. So the whole Diablo is a failing franchise and all that, it's just not stuck in the reality of what the revenue is generating. When the company is looking at the game and they're making the game and they look at the bottom line, they're only seeing green signs. They're seeing, triple green up arrows, thumbs up, they're getting the mythic beam drop. Like the realistic here for the business side of things is they're just seeing this is going really well. Now, I looked, but I couldn't find the information related to pre-order sales of the expansion. I would love to know exactly how well the expansion is selling. That would be an interesting piece of data, and I'd love to see how that correlates directly after the PTR test, where people got to sort of see a peek into the future, as well as after the release of the Spiritborn footage. But all of those numbers seem to not be presently available. So if you're a lover of the Diablo franchise, you have basically nothing to worry about. It looks like that quote a while back where he said that they're going to be making multiple expansions is absolutely going to be the truth. And eventually, I'm sure we're going to see a Diablo 5 way down the line at some point. The game is selling very well, has sold very well, and people are buying their cosmetics in their shop. So the numbers are working in their favor. It's been a big success for them. That's about it. See ya.